Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to SP Streamer Live. I'm your host, Michael Simione. You can follow me on Twitter at SP Streamer. We brought on our guest from last week again for this week, and that is Rob DiPietro, who runs the Pull Hitter podcast. And on today's show, we're going to talk about some no-hitters, some typical streaming stuff. We're going to talk more about home-away splits instead of lefty-righty splits like we did last week. And we're going to talk about hitters and upcoming schedules. So before we get started, let's introduce Rob here. Rob, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Good, Mike. Thank you for having me again. Cool to have this opportunity to get to talk to people live. And, I'm ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, man. For those who can't see on the screen, you can follow Rob on Twitter at DeadPullHitter. So Rob, let's get started with talking no-hitters. I mean, they're happening a ton this season. So first off, what are your thoughts on Spencer Turnbull throwing a no-hitter?
Pretty interesting. It seems like he finally upped that slider usage and kind of seeing that. I think that's going to work for him going forward. It's just heavy fastball slider. I think a lot of people have been, waiting for him to evolve into a solid pitcher. And I think we're starting to see it unfold this year. I'm happy for him. He looks like he finally got the pitch mix working together. And, I don't think he's going to be like a stud ace moving forward, but I think he's gradually getting to a point where he could be like a top 40, top 50 pitcher.
Yeah, I think he's becoming rosterable, basically.
Right.
Not just a streamer. He's got that great slider. He's doing using the four seam instead of the sinker. So a lot of good stuff happening there. All right. So what about? We're going to continue to let this video.
One thing,
play.
Mike, before we move on, I'm in an NFBC auction championship, just a $200 league, but I dropped him because Fulmer was available and I needed saves. Like I was last in saves and I'm second in the league. So like with a couple more points in saves, I was shooting for first and I knew he had the double bump to this upcoming week, but I sacrificed some possible, saves for a no-hitter, of course. I know.
Oh,
It's weird too because like my starting pitching is so solid. Like I have pretty much the whole White Sox staff except for Keuchel, and then just a whole bunch of other like solid pitchers that. So unfortunately, he felt the roster squeeze this week, but
that's horrible. It is what it is, man.
It is what it is, right? At least Fulmer is racking up the saves.
yeah, he's been good, man. It might end up being worth it for you,
Yeah.
All right, so Corey Kluber as well threw a no-hitter. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think we finally saw that curveball just popping in for some called strikes. Looked pretty awesome. It looked like Kluber. I think he had like a 61% CSW on that curveball that game. Starting to warm. He gradually he had been building himself up to this moment from the start of the season, and I think the Yankees, as long as he could stay healthy, which obviously I think we took maybe a little too much for granted, that the fact that he got hit with the ball and it wasn't just like a pitching injury per se, which is like a freaky injury. I think the Yankees made a solid sign here. I think he's starting to prove that he could be maybe not Cy Young Corey Kluber, but at least just well above average for them.
Yeah, I agree. This is a good question here that someone is asking. Are you worried about post-complete game letdown for Turnbull? I mean, I feel like this is a good question overall. I mean, what are your thoughts on this, Rob? Like let's say a pitcher of Turnbull's caliber, right? So like borderline rosterable streamer, if they throw a game like this, are you worried that the next time out it's not going to be nearly as good, or you just kind of let that go and say, nah, I think he could perform just
of course it won't be nearly as good.
Well, what I mean? But will it be a disaster? Is it a start that you want to make, for your fantasy team?
Right. I mean, if you just look at his game logs and his innings pitched, 5-6, 5-3, 6, and then 9. So it's been a couple of games where he's had trouble getting to the fifth. So obviously that still hangs. One game isn't going to change it, but I think our desires and will take us to, this guy just threw a no-hitter. So of course you're going to like plug him in, because you're going to think in your head, at least, like this guy's finding it, so of course there's that opportunity for a letdown, but I think he's, and even his last start versus KC before the no-hitter, he pitched really well too. So this may just be a constant trend of good start for him coming up.
So what are your thoughts overall about all these no-hitters? Are you liking it? Are you hating it? Because I feel like I see a mixture on Twitter, like love all the great pitching duels, hate that like it's kind of ruining no-hitters. They're not as, I guess as cool as much, What are your thoughts on that?
I just wish that Major League didn't mess with the ball. I just wish that they just would have left it and let the players work it out because that's what players do. But it just seems like the ball is being manipulated with the seams and with substances, like to an extreme effect that, and I just think it's unfair a little bit to the hitters because I felt like they were in the disadvantage. They're always at the disadvantage of the pitchers, especially like the analytics for pitchers has beaten the analytics for batters, for a while now. And so, I don't know, Mike. I don't like dislike all the no hitters. I couldn't care less what the game, shows me as long as it's good baseball. But it's weird because they wanted to fix the balls to decrease home runs, right, and make it more of a more than that 3 outcome game. But it's just actually leading to more strikeouts, and so and the fly balls are just dying at the track. So I think it was too much. I think it was too much of a change. I think they should have kept the balls. And yeah. That's my opinion.
Agree. You know what? It's like I look at it from a fantasy perspective instead of, I guess, real life baseball perspective. And
right.
like, I am so worried. Like, watch if they move the mound back, that'd be a nightmare to try and analyze. Like, you can't analyze that. Like, so many things could change by doing that. And it'll completely screw up preparation when it comes to fantasy baseball. So
and I think Saris was saying, like, I heard saying that he was talking to pitching coordinators and he's asking them about their mounds, moving back, and he's like, we're just gonna get everyone to throw more off speed down, and it's just gonna be more chase, so it's like so it's, I don't think it's gonna accomplish anything if they do that either, and it's just so I don't know, these guys have been pitching for years, like at 60 6, like I don't know. I hope they don't do that. I hope they.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I guess we're just gonna have to sit back and see what MLB screws up next.
Right.
All right. Let's move on to streaming. As my dog barks in the background, I have so much going on in my house today, so my dog's gonna be barking probably the entire freaking stream.
What do you got going on?
Right.
Anything good?
We're doing some outside work, and so there's like workers here, and he barks at any noise or sees anybody. He's annoying.
Okay. Being the guard dog, Mike.
Yeah, basically. All right, let's move on to streaming. So we're gonna go to the pitching side first, just like last week. So let's talk about some offenses to stream against overall. First, let's look at Arizona. They were hot as hell. They were playing so well for a couple weeks, and now all of a sudden, right to the bottom. They're last in WRC plus last 7 days, as well as slugging and WOBA. So, what are your thoughts on Arizona, Rob?
I think you got to look at the overall context. They just faced Buehler, Urias, Kershaw, Scherzer, and Trevor Rogers in the last 10 days, and I feel like
very good point.
Yeah, on top of having guys like Domingo Leyba, Stephen Vogt, Andy Young, and Josh Reddick in the lineup, with Carson Kelly, Jubal Cabrera, and Christian Walker out, but Marte's back. So that's a plus. But I just think overall, in that overall context, with key guys being out and facing stud pitchers, that they should at least get back to average and not that, that 36 WRC plus.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think they're still they're okay to stream against, but don't think it's a lock because of what you just said. They actually had a really tough schedule facing pitchers.
Right.
Plus Marte's back, who's the best player in baseball. So
He really is.
All right, Mets are down to a 64 WRC plus last 7 days. I apologize if this is not correct as of today. I looked up these stats the other day, but I know they are down there still. Obviously, all of these injuries, I mean, makes complete sense, right, Rob, to stream against them while they're down. I mean, the lineup is just, a couple names you're not going to know. But anyway, looking at the Mets overall, do you think that they can get through this, Rob? Because I know the Mets were playing really well. They were in first, and do you think pitching, they're getting injuries too? Like,
Right.
do you think we're in a bad stretch here? You think they're going to be able to push through this?
No, I think they're going to be able to push through at 500, or maybe a couple games below. But I don't think it's like going to be disaster. And I got to say, big ups to the management for picking up Peraza and picking up VR. I mean, Mike, how many discussions, right? Especially now, like DM chats in the battle of the pods. Like, what are the Mets doing getting VR? Like, I think all of us as Mets fans was thinking that, and now he's where would we be without Giants and VR? And that's so wild to say, but I think that's the greatest thing about baseball. Is like, again, many props to the Mets organization for picking up these players that are just what I like about them is they're not like they're solid hit tool guys that don't strike out a lot, and they're putting the bat on the ball and they're making things happen with speed, and I think that's a great way to get by when you're fully injured like the Mets are right now, with not relying on guys who are a big swing and miss, and I think just bodes well for the rest of the season. I think that depth that they're building is just going to be really good all around. So I think it might be like a little bit like a minor blessing to see what they have, especially in Vargas that got called up. I mean, I love the kid's energy. I love his speed. I love his ability to put the bat on the ball and make stuff happen, like, causing havoc the old school way.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's good what they did. I mean, it makes a ton of sense to build that depth. And I added Villar in a league as a streamer essentially last week, and it worked out tremendously for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, you got to buy into these guys who get playing time anytime you can. All right, so Atlanta Braves and the Giants the Braves have the highest K rate as of late, and the Giants have the 5th highest as of late. Two good offenses though. So my question for you is, Rob, let's say you're towards the end of the week and everyone's in all different types of leagues. So I would think leans more towards head to head. Let's say you need some strikeouts and you want to stream. Do you think it makes sense to stream against the Braves and the Giants, two good offenses, to try and get some strikeouts? Or do you think this is somewhat of a mirage here in the last, from the last 30, actually, I think this is the last week or so?
Yeah, I'm gonna go. No, don't stream. It depends. Like if you have a 1.2 ERA and your opponent is at a 5, and you need Ks, sure, maybe try to slide it in. But in that same time frame, Mike, they're 4th and 9th in runs scored per game. So that's what I'm saying with the ERA. Like if that's close, I wouldn't do it, because I just think you're gonna get bit in the butt. Yeah. I mean, because they are two solid offenses. And I think the Giants, especially, they're proving that they are no slouch. It seems like they closed that. They opened up the thing back up, and it's still an offensive park somehow. So it's pretty strange what's going on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, overall, according to Savant, part factors are still kind of down there. I think the Giants are just really good.
They are.
Weirdly enough. You know what I mean? They're really, honestly, in my eyes, they're becoming Tampa Bay. I mean, they're adding these pitchers and developing them really well and making them so much better. If you look at DeSclafani and Miley, all these things, and then on
the offensive side, they're doing
and they're platooning. Right? You got Ruff, who's really good, in certain platoon spots. So it's interesting what they're doing there. I agree. Only if ERA doesn't matter, potentially it kind of makes sense. I would more so lean towards righties against both of them compared to lefties.
Yep.
Let's talk overall, though. I mean, these four teams basically at the bottom every single week, and it's Pittsburgh, Texas, Cleveland, and Seattle. Are they basically extreme against them whenever you can type of teams?
I guess the only team, I mean, I would be hesitant to stream all the time would be Cleveland because they're still a scrappy bunch. They don't K a lot. They walk a lot. I kind of like those type of teams where, and it's just, I know you're going to get your ratios too. And I think we talked about this last week. You're still walking into great starting pitching and great pens. So if you're trying to chase a win versus the Indians, it's not easy. They're still great.
Yeah.
You know, they're a good winning team still. So, and I just think their bats will start to wake up a little bit when that Cleveland air gets a little warmer. There's one guy I'm going to talk about at the end here, but yeah, I think Cleveland would be the only one I'd say, you know, restrained from like making it a bank, making it an automatic stream against the other teams. I think Pittsburgh, you know, they're just like Mike. I likened it to like I feel like the Pirates are picking up guys like we fab on the cheap, like they're legit just signing veteran minimum guys over and over. They're doing like the burn-in churn like we do in fantasy. They're just doing it in real life. They're like, it's almost like they had like, hey, you have $1 million to make, you know, moves, and like they're working with like our fab budget, and they're just making these cheap ass, you know, moves to pick up guys. So yeah, I mean their lineup is just dreadful. It might get a little better when Hayes comes back. And Moran just came back, so that might help them going forward. But overall, yeah. And Seattle, go against Seattle hard.
Oh, yeah. I like to stream against all of them. See, the thing with Cleveland, I think you bring up a good point. When it comes to wins, it's going to be really tough. And they do get on base. But you know what it is? They don't ever really kill anyone, though. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like their offense it doesn't explode that often. So I feel like they're a good stream against to, like, not get that 2-inning, 8-earn type of stream. Right. You know what I mean? So they're a little safer, but they're a little tougher, I think.
Makes a 100% sense. Yeah. Non-blow ups. Yep.
All right. So last week we talked about some righty lefty splits. I decided, why don't we change it up? Let's talk about home away splits when it comes to streaming against certain offenses. So Washington Nationals, they have an 85 WRC plus and a very low 677 OPS at home. According to Savant, their home park is ranked 6th in terms of hitter friendliness. What do you make of this? Do you think this is going to completely change moving forward?
Yeah, so I am I'm a self-admitted like non-park expert, like non-expert in park factors. But I try my best to utilize like a couple of different, you know, resources, you know. StatCast is one that I just started to take a look at recently. But like I always looked at the ESPN park factors. And it's strange because on ESPN, the Nationals park is showing as 29th worst for runs scored and 24th for home runs. So, and then I looked on Savant, it's showing that it plays as a heavy double, like it got a great double rankings. So I don't know, maybe the extra base hits is something that, and maybe this is team dependent, you know, I don't know if this is just like going with, you know, how their team hits a ball across the field. But you know, and it's also maybe because they're getting their guys back and it's picking up a little bit in Washington. So, yeah, so I'm not really sure what to make of the park factors in Nationals Park overall.
Yeah, I don't know about the past. You know, looking at what I have up on the screen, it shows from 2019 to 2021. It shows like it's been a pretty good park in the past. And, you know, I think it really just comes down to Washington's offense. I think they're just on the way up and they just struggled for a little bit. So, you know, if you have a pitcher going into Washington, I wouldn't necessarily bank on that, you know, helping you.
Right.
Moving on to the Twins. They have a 98 WRC plus 220 batting average at home. I just want to talk about them overall. I mean, the Twins are last place. No one really saw this coming. They're struggling on every end. Are they a team just overall that you're not afraid of anymore to stream against and like throw a pitcher out there, or are you still a little scared to face them?
I would still be a little weary because, and I think that's going to be a factor of that. I think they're going to let Kirilloff and both Larnack roll a little bit. And I think Kirilloff, we see what he could do. And Larnack, when he started, you could see he's putting the bat on the ball and he's got some power too. I think they're going to let the young kids roll and see what they got. And I think they're going to bring a bit of a spark to the team. And I like especially the last 10 days, like Buxton went out. Yeah. And then Kirilloff and even Garver missed some time. Again, I'll go back to like with the Indians. It's just still a low-K, high-walk kind of team. And, it's just that I think they have, they just have like that big inning bust in the middle with like a Sano.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. He can definitely, as we see, hit 3 homers, in a game, but he just kills rallies completely. With double plays and strikeouts. And I just feel like
that's true.
I feel like if Kirilloff and Larnack get a chance to play, and Larnack especially showed that he could stick, I think Kirilloff's going to replace him at first. And I think they're going to look to either waive him or trade him or something, because I think that experiment is done. The defense is terrible.
It's so bad.
It's so bad. It's, how long can you hit 150? Like
I know.
3 years in a row? Like,
and then he has those 3 homer games out of nowhere, but I feel like he's more of a detriment. But I agree with you overall. I'm still a little scared of them. I think they do have that bust out potential, unlike what I was talking about with Cleveland. I think they're opposite. Like, they can blow up your pitcher in 1 inning real quick. And you want to minimize risk when you're streaming or even starting your back end rotation. So I think, certain instances, I definitely be afraid. Overall, I mentioned it earlier. Colorado is struggling at home on offense, which is interesting. Not struggling. They're basically about average. I think maybe a little bit lower overall when I was looking at some stats. So, Rob, would you consider streaming a pitcher in Coors Field?
No, I don't. I
think I'm with you there.
Yeah, not like your average streaming regular.
I did do it once, though. I actually picked John Gray as a pick, and it worked out. He pitched really well, but he's weird right now. He's got those reverse splits, and hey, if they're working it, because that's happened in the past. Marquez has pitched at home really well for an entire year.
Right.
Freeland did it too, so I feel like that's a little different. But yeah, overall, I'm a little scared.
So I did since 2017, right? So the start of the season through the end of May. This is in Coors. So about 2 months of the start of the season, 317 WOBA, 173 ISO, and 307 BABIP as a team. Now, when the weather starts to warm up from June on, we see 328 WOBA, so went up 11 points, 186 ISO, and 323 BABIP, so up 16
so
BABIP
you think
points.
Again, the warmer weather.
I do it because I think Colorado, when it's like that cooler weather there, it totally affects the ball there more. And I think when it gets warmer, it's going to pick up. And I think that's when you're going to see like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
And just for reference, get Gombered. Just for reference, like the WOBA across Major League during that time frame and other parks goes up about 8%. So, 8 points. So it's not like super above the rest of the league, but it's still a big gap where I would say to, be wary of that.
Yeah, that's a great point. Moving forward overall, offense is going to go up with the warmer weather, and just because Rockies aren't hitting at home doesn't mean they will continue to do so. So still do not stream in Colorado.
But a question, if the ball moves better off the bat in hot weather, will it now start be moving even more out of the pitcher's hands because of the seams and the substances as well? This is all I know science, like it's above our pay grade. But
just based off past past researches and stuff that I've seen, it's just basically offense goes up, maybe for the better pitchers, it actually does benefit them. Like you said, they get a little more movement. But overall, pitching isn't as good moving forward. Basically, it's better in the colder months. And then I've noticed too a little bit later in the year as well.
I think something I heard Todd Zola say was going to throw back to the no hitters. I forgot to mention this prior, but saying like a majority of no hitters do come in April, May, and September. So that those hotter months are definitely least expected to see no hitters.
And I've noticed it with streaming. I mean, to start the year in April is tough. Right. I mean, the first 2 weeks because you got no info, but once you have info, you typically have better months early on and later on than compared to the middle.
Gotcha.
Cool. Moving on, Toronto. Their ballpark is a hitter's dream right now, and Toronto at home is hitting 154 WRC plus with a 3.99 WOBA. I mean, really good offense anyway, but that ballpark is extremely hitter friendly. So my question for you is not just geared towards streaming. Would you consider benching your middle rotation guys if they're in this ballpark? Let's just bring up like a Aaron Savali type of thing and not your aces. Would you consider benching them, or would you still throw them out there going into Toronto? Well, I know it's not in Toronto, but
right, it's in Dunedin, right?
Yes, Dunedin. Yes.
But they're moving to Buffalo June 1st. So
okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so
okay.
I don't know how that's going to play. I know like last year it was still definitely hitter friendly. I don't know how much hitter friendly it will be. And then also, I mean, until that happens, if they have any home games, I just took a look at 2 pitchers on their own team. So at home, Ryu has no earned runs in 13 innings pitched, which is pretty impressive. And it was against Boston, and I forgot the other team. 2 really good offensive teams. Like he's really been an ace, right, Mike? I mean, he's become like an ace pitcher.
As long as he's healthy, the health is what always scared me. Yeah.
Right. And so then on the flip, you can look at Robbie Ray in 17 innings pitches home, 8 earned runs, so 4.15 ERA. So yeah, I would say Savali, yeah, sure. I would start him at home. I mean, in Dunedin.
Right. So what about this? Like someone's asking, what about Herman going to Dunedin this week? Would you start him?
Damon, I've never been a Herman fan. I don't think he has the pitchability to like work around that offense. But again, like we're talking like you mentioned, Mike, this offense is just stacked as is. Yeah. So it's so hard to even throw pitches against them in general. Because they're just so they're so good. But I wouldn't throw him this week versus the Blue Jays.
Yeah, I agree. All right, moving to away splits. Really just going to mention one team here. Oakland's typically a good offense, but they've been struggling on the road. Would you consider them a good stream? Let's say you have a, Mike Minor at home against Oakland. Would you consider something like that moving forward?
You asked me the wrong guy, Mike. I love Mike Minor. I'm throwing him all the time. But yeah, I think I am. I just think that they're like a very inconsistent team in terms of like, again, like through their lineup, they just have like a lot of like swing and miss mixed in with some guys who are contact guys, but it's just not like, when I look at the lineup, I just always wonder, like, could this be done any differently, right? And you have Laureano like batting 3rd and 4th and Connor's leading off. And I don't know. I feel like there's something missing in the sequence of their order, of their batting order. But I mean, right now, yeah, I probably look to, stream against them, especially lefties, because I think that they when Olsen gets neutralized completely, which he does versus lefties, I think it makes their offense a lot weaker.
A lot worse. Yep.
Yeah,
I agree. Real quick, we mentioned it last week. Obviously, Colorado on the road, they always struggle. Right now the .098 ISO and 584 OPS, both atrocious. So anyone listening, obviously keep streaming against them when they are on the road. All right, let's move on to 2-start streamers now for this upcoming week. I'll talk about mine real quick first. That's going to be Spencer Turnbull. Even though we just discussed him and how he might, anyway, but he gets Cleveland. Like I said, I think that limits the blow-ups, a little bit of a tougher lineup, but I think that the way he's going with his pitch mix four seam heavy with the slider, and then he still has a sinker, change, curveball. He's got that deep arsenal. I think he could easily handle them at home. He does then get the Yankees at home, which is a little scary. No Stanton as of right now, but I think he can handle them, honestly. They're a little scary, but I think with his deep arsenal, he'll be able to kind of mix things up with them. And I feel like worst case, if he puts up a mediocre start, you're still going to profit off of it because I think he's going to pitch really well against Cleveland.
Are they really scary, though? I mean, I don't know.
It depends. At times, yes. At times, they look lost. I mean, DJ LeMahieu's struggling. Glaber is back now, so we'll see how he starts going. But sometimes they bust out with the home runs. Judge is scary whenever he's out there. But yeah, I mean, I think you could easily see 2 good starts here. Right. At worst case, you're going to get 1 good start and like an okay start. So I think it's going to be a profitable week for him, basically. Who's your 2-star streamer?
David Peterson. At home against Colorado and the Braves. We mentioned the Colorado thing, right, on the road, so I don't have to go through that. The 209 average and last in WOBA and last in ISO. But I look at Peterson. He just started versus the Braves in Atlanta, which is always a tough start for a pitcher. But on the surface, it looked a little worse, but underneath, he didn't allow barrel. His launch angle was 2.4 degrees, so keeping the ball down, and also 88 mile an hour EV on 13 batted balls in play. So I kind of like that. So it seems like Atlanta is like way more aggressive in the zone versus fastball than other teams, especially versus him. So you just have to watch out for that. He can't be too cute laying some in down the middle. I think we saw like with the Tampa Bay start, he was just really hitting his spots. You got to be a little more careful versus the Braves, but I'm still loving that 3-4 Sierra on the year. The 52% ground ball rate and the 20% K minus BB. And Mike, I don't know if you have been looking at the steamer rest of season at all. You are on mute, sir.
Sorry, I keep muting because my dog barks. From time to
I saw
time,
your mouth moving, and I was like, "Where's Mike?" But it's almost like they definitely incorporated the new environment into their projections a little more than the other projections, at least, because just even in my weekly BAB when I'm like projecting some stats, it just seems like they have pretty low ERA and whips for guys moving forward. And average for batters have been, you can see the weekly projection, they're lower than ever. But the rest of the season steamer for David Peterson, 3.57 ERA and a 9+ K per 9. I love it.
On it, man.
Yeah, I love it. Him. Yeah.
I'm waiting for it to finally just click and like he string together a couple 5 starts. I think it's going to happen. Yeah, I'm waiting for it to happen. Like right now he's pitching really well against those weaker offenses, but when he plays a decent offense, sometimes he gets a little flustered and doesn't pitch as well. But I feel like that string's going to happen eventually, and that's when he's just going to be good moving forward. So I'm kind of just waiting for that to finally happen.
Yeah. I think we both are. I think as Met fans we are too. But I just really, I think like when they're at full strength, when they got Thor in there and DeGrom and Stroman and Carrasco, I think when he doesn't have to be the second best pitcher or the third best pitcher, he's gonna really shine. When you throw him in between, you sandwich him in between those guys, and he's just really,
thinking no one cares about me.
And also too, it's just a different look. You get all these power righty arms, and then here's lefty David Peterson coming in and just mixing it up. And I think that works a lot in staffs, right? I think that's always been something. You have a guy to break up the power arms with righty power arms with a lefty who does something different. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about Peterson moving forward.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. Anyone who listens to me knows I love the kid. All right, let's look at streamers just overall for next week. I'm going to touch on 2 real quick. I know you're going to talk about a guy you love. My first is going to be James Caprilian. I think I pronounced that correctly.
Yep.
Just had a really good start against the Angels. He went 5.2 innings, 2 earned with 9 strikeouts. I don't really necessarily believe the strikeouts like that will happen, but he gets a juicy matchup against Seattle, who we both just, we mentioned earlier as a team you always want to stream against. Oakland knows how to utilize their pitchers to the best of their abilities. So I think you're going to get a lot out of him, especially in matchups like this. So that is someone I would definitely be targeting. Might even be my streamer of the week. Haven't quite decided yet. Then real quick, I am going to touch on Jose Urina here. I'm going to bring this up just because what Urina is doing is kind of interesting. This is the launch angle against him by season. So you can see the massive dip this year where it's coming to. Urina's inducing a ton of ground balls. I know he didn't have a great start in his last outing, but hitters are having a tough time getting under his pitches. And that's because he's been really well at keeping the balls high up in the zone and not letting them fall into the middle of the zone. Instead, he's missing above it. So again, I am not a Urina guy. I am not a big fan of him. I've never had faith in him. But I think what he's doing, it makes him a little more interesting. He's definitely not someone you want to take and pick up and hold and think he's going to help you the rest of the season. But I think he finally reached the level where he's streamable. And I think against Cleveland, like I said, he's not going to get blown up. As long as he keeps it within the zone, I think he could be okay. So I think he's a decent stream for this upcoming week.
You have more cojones than I do, Michael.
Hey,
I don't like that he can't miss bats. That really bothers me.
Yeah, I know. I like to lean towards more, strikeout upside as well. But I mean, I feel like he's that good option or fab option where I'm gonna take this guy a little bit above what I think everyone else is, and if I end up with him, it's gonna end up working out for me, and I don't have to go with guys that everyone's targeting. You know what I mean? Kind of like an underrated stream.
Yeah.
So that's why I went with him. What about your pick, Rob?
I'm going with Mike Minor versus at Tampa Bay. I think we covered Tampa Bay last week on the show and how they're struggling, especially versus lefties. So versus lefties in the last 2 weeks, 182 average, 33% K rate. 77 WRC plus. So Mike Minor's got a 5.14 ERA. It kind of looks scary, but his CRA is at 4. But his last 4 starts, 26-7 K to BB percentage, 315 WHIP, and only 4 barrels. And his hard hit percentage is down by about 10%. The only thing I found a little odd things for Minor is that he started off the season, I think, in spring training and in the first start with his velo being pretty high.
I'll show you right here, Rob.
Show me. Yeah.
So this is the first start, and then every game since just not trending the right way.
And his changeup too, right? I mean, I think
that's been decreasing as well.
His put away rate on his changeup was 30% last year. This year is 13. So I think that when he tried to use that as an out pitch, it's kind of been failing him. So and I don't know if that's just because of the velo and the difference in the velo, right, Mike? You want that good separation. So maybe it's just getting a little closer where it's not fooling the batters as much. But I trust the veterans when it comes to stuff like this to kind of work through that and get that fixed. But yeah, definitely, it's definitely something to monitor and to be aware of that velo 100%, because we all would rather him at 94, 93 and a half.
Yeah, I think I'm not a fan that he's going away from the changeup, and it's just because I think the changeup is much better than the slider. But I think he's a good pitcher. I think the Zavilo thing is I think it makes him from someone maybe you want to keep on your team to just becoming a streamer. I think he's okay to stream. Last night was ridiculous what they did with him. I don't know if you saw, Rob. So he had a quality start. He was at 90 something pitches, 92, 93 pitches, and they bring him out in the 7th with the lead. I don't know why. When he's already in the 90s and he's been struggling this season and the velocity is down. And so they bring him out in the 7th, lets up a base runner, and they say, nah, keep pitching. Lets up another base runner. So then they pull him, bring in a reliever, gets bases loaded, grand slam, they lose the game. I don't understand that managerial decision, but I think he actually pitched better yesterday than you really saw, and I think it was just a mistake of leaving him in there too long. So I do think he's a good streaming, someone to stream, moving forward.
Yeah, and I don't think the for a team that boasts a deep bullpen, I don't think it was that taxed where they couldn't have brought in a mix of relievers.
Yeah, I mean, Minor, they like to let him. They like to let their starters stay in longer. They're kind of like Cleveland, the Royals. But I would just think a guy finally pitched well who's been struggling, and the velocity's down, and he's already in the 90 pitch count area. Like, why do that? I don't know. It didn't make sense.
Yeah,
or
I feel like sometimes,
let alone he lets up a person on base, pull him right then and there. Don't let him continue to let other people on.
It's like when that team context where like they're not getting length from their other starters, right? So the manager may be like, we just, we need him to brave it through, and that plays into things a lot. Yeah, of course. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, it was funny. The SP streamer Discord chat was like going crazy when they brought him back out there in the 7th. They're like, are you kidding me? They were like, it's going to ruin the quality start, and it got ruined, and everybody hated on them. All right. This section, we're going to let Rob run away with it because for those who didn't listen last week or don't know, Rob has a podcast, Pull Hitter podcast, and he likes to run through these upcoming schedules. I know you missed this week, right, Rob? You had you had something going on. Yeah. So why don't you go ahead and talk about, the schedules coming up, what teams have the most games, what's hitter friendly, that kind of stuff, as we're going to start now gearing towards hitting streaming for the rest of this live stream.
Yeah, cool. And like Mike mentioned, I have the Pull Hitter podcast. I go through on Friday. I usually go through the Friday through Sunday lineups and just pick out some notable things. So for next week, though, for the full week, just to be noted that 3 teams playing 5 games: Atlanta, Houston, and Boston. Boston playing all of them at home, which it kind of still leaves their hitters, and it's 3 good hitting teams. So it's just one of those tough. If you set your lineup for Monday through Sunday completely, you're going to be, I think still keeping most of those players that you start on the reg. You're going to still play them unless you have clear upgrades because of games played and skills over them. So another thing I like to hit on is the DH situations, teams that are gaining a DH or teams that may be losing a DH. So Boston is actually hosting in those 5 games both National League teams. They get Atlanta for 2 games, and then they get the Marlins for 3 games. So for the Braves, when they go to an AL park, the Panda comes in and he hits bombs. So if you do have a chance to stream daily, I would definitely keep an eye on Panda for some homers. Then Miami is also facing 5 right-handed pitchers that next week. So that's definitely good for Dickerson. He'll stay in there, and maybe even versus maybe even gaining the DH, he stays in there versus the righties and doesn't have to sit. I think this is also good for Jazz Chisholm because he's normally playing every day, but since he just came back from the hammy, I think that if they want to throw him in the DH to just give him, like, instead of a rest day completely, just like a half of a rest day. And I think this is also good for John Birdie to get in there and get some reps. Then we have the St. Louis Cardinals. They're heading to the Chicago White Sox for 3 games on Monday through Wednesday. So with Tyler O'Neill on the AL, this probably helped like Justin Williams stay in the lineup, and maybe get Matt Carpenter in for some DH games. And then the Cardinals are facing 5 right-handed pitchers, but they don't have a lot that fluctuates with lefty righties because they have so many switch hitters. So that kind of helps them with their lineups. The Padres are heading to the Astros, so they'll gain DH for Friday through Sunday, which is all versus right-handed pitching. They could use that opportunity to keep Nola in the lineup at DH, or I think this also helped Tommy Pham stay in the lineup as well, maybe at DH. And who knows, if you're in a deep league, you may even like try to grab Brian O'Grady and his lefty bat versus 3 righties. Then we have the Dodgers, who are also heading to Houston for 2 games. Perfect opportunity to keep good old Will Smith and Justin Turner in the lineup. The last time they headed to a DH park, that's exactly what happened. You saw Will Smith got in there and he played a 3-game set, 2 at catcher, 1 at DH. So that's always good. And Justin Turner, of course, who hasn't been missing games this year, Mike. He's in the top 40 in plate appearances, which is pretty wild.
Nice.
Yeah, pretty crazy. And one more for the DH. We have Philadelphia heading to Tampa Bay. And for that, just to be aware, that series is Friday through Sunday. It's the only series Friday through Sunday that's only 2 games. So they have off Friday, and they're playing Saturday, Sunday. So again, if you set your lineups in through Monday through Thursday and Friday to Sunday, like NFBC or Fantrax leagues, then you just be aware that they're going to be down 1 game that weekend. So Colorado is playing all 7 games on the road. That's another thing I always like to note. So beware of the hitters this week. So for right-handed pitching, we have the Detroit playing 7 games versus righties. And they also have one of the hardest opposing pitching schedules. They'll be facing Bieber, Cole, Cleveland, and New York. Baltimore has got 6 games versus righty. This usually helps DJ Stewart, but with Santander back, you just have to monitor how they're going to divvy up those at-bats, because Hayes looks like a fixture now. He's been playing really solid. So I don't know what they're going to do, if they're going to platoon Mountcastle and Stewart, or just give everyone like a cycle of days off. And so the Reds will also be facing 6 righties. So this is good for Tyler Naquin, and possibly good for Shogo Akiyama now. And what they've been doing lately too has been starting Tyler Stevenson at first base. And when they face righties, keeps Barnhart's lefty bat in the lineup. So I kind of like that. I kind of like how they're giving Stevenson at bat at other positions, because I think he's a good bat that needs to stay in there. Yeah. So versus lefties, some things to be aware of. Cleveland got 4 games. This takes Jake Bauers out of first base. No one probably has Jake Bauers, but what that does is that shifts Josh Naylor to first on those games, and gives some reps to Harold Ramirez, who's actually hitting the ball pretty hard and pretty decently recently. There we go. New York, the Yankees have 4 games versus lefties, so this probably affects Tyler Wade, who's been getting some reps in there. He's sat the last 3 versus lefties, and the Milwaukee Brewers also 4 games versus left-handed pitcher. This helps out Avisail Garcia and Tyrone Taylor. And it might, Omar Narvaez has sat his last 2 games versus lefties, and Vogelback has not started the game at all versus lefties. And to some extent, it might hurt Travis Shaw, who has actually started the last 3 versus left-handed pitching, but did not start the prior 3 versus left-handed pitches to that. So, so those are the hitting notes to be aware of. Again, I would just stress to everyone, like, when you're making a decision for like a weekly league, or when the league is chopped up into 2 parts of the week, just do your due diligence and seeing, the matchups for those things. Because like you said, like if you happen to have a ton of Braves, a ton of Phillies or Rays in your lineup, and Friday to Sunday they have only 2 games. Like, it's an opportunity to look ahead and fill those games in.
Absolutely.
Especially if you have a guy who's platooning, and he might only play 1. So just little things like that to be aware of. As well, of course, looking at your starting pitchers that they're pitching against and stuff like that.
It's all about getting those plate appearances, right, Rob?
Yeah, definitely.
No zeros.
No zeros.
All right, we're going to continue to shift into hitting streamers now. We're just going to talk about some players that you might want to add for the upcoming week. I mentioned last week, I'm going to mention again this week. We do have writer at SP Streamer, Josh St. Marie, who does do hitting streaming every week. He's been pretty successful at it, has had several really good calls, so I suggest reading that article. We release it every Saturday morning.
Until he gets signed by the Red Sox, and then you lose him as a writer.
Yeah, there you go. So I'm going to roll with his stream of the week, which is Harrison Bader. He's been playing really well. He has 4 homers, 3 bags in 19 games. It looks like he's getting a little bit of pop in there. It's, he has a high to decent max exit velocity. He increased his pull rate. He has that high sprint speed, which will lead to like a decent power speed combo. He also increased his launch angle a little bit and hasn't been striking out as much. On top of all that, we just mentioned plate appearances. They have 7 games this upcoming week. So Bader makes a ton of sense. If he's out there, I'd be grabbing him. I actually would be grabbing and holding on to him because I feel like he's got a lot of potential. And, the Cardinals are starting to rely on those young guys a little bit. So I think he's definitely an exciting player to have. All right, Rob, I know you brought 2 guys, so why don't you run them down for us?
I love the Bader, and I saw some stuff about him mentioning how he worked hard to not overhaul his swing path to like be more of a line drive hitter, but to be less of a strikeout guy. So
nice.
he wants to keep the lift. Yeah. And you could see it in a couple of the breakdowns that I saw of his swing. It looks like he definitely made a concerted effort to do that. But yeah, so I'm going to mention Corey Dickerson, owned 9% in Yahoo and 20% in ESPN leagues. I mentioned the 5 games versus the righties and the 3 games with the DH at Boston. So funny thing, he played a broken piece of 2019 short season last year, and this year he's actually had 640 plate appearances since the beginning of 2019, 20 home runs, 5 stolen bases, and a 285 average. Just, a pretty solid player, Corey Dickerson.
Yeah.
I think that like right now his fly ball percentage is super low, and his line drive and ground balls are up. So it's definitely leading to like a high BABIP and a high average right now. And but his launch angle and his barrel rate, they're super low as well, but they're trending upwards, and he's still got a WRC plus of 114. What's surprising is after 2 years of not having a stolen base attempt, he's 2 for 5 this year. So I'm it's pretty promising though, because when a guy is showing that he's willing to run, it's a good thing. And taking advantage of the matchups too versus Boston, who's allowed the 5th most stolen bases this year, 25 for 30 their catches are, and letting up free bags, as well as the Phillies, who are 17 out of 20. So I think you're going to get a homer and you're going to get a stolen base from him. And I think in a weekly league, it's pretty solid. Yeah. And again, Cesar Hernandez, I think I probably mention this guy every week, it seems like, but 12% on Yahoo.
Always
20%.
Undervalued. Every year.
He's totally undervalued. Since, he plays every day, and I love that.
Yep.
I love the switch hitting. He doesn't come out of the lineup. Since May 2nd, he's got a 125 WRC plus, 280 average, 208 ISO, 353 WOBA, 3 homers, 47% hard hit, and 10% barrel. It's pretty solid line right there. He is hitting balls to center field 9% more than his career average. So I think that if he starts to pull and hit some more like Oppo, that he'll start to get like some more extra base hits. The one thing that's a little strange, he's got 0 stolen base attempts, and it's 93% sprint speed, so it's still there. And I don't know, Mike, maybe this is the byproduct of that offense just being so weak, like we mentioned, and like maybe it's like a no wasted outs type of situation where the manager. I
kind of feel like this happened to him last year too, right?
Yeah.
Or am I wrong? I feel like he didn't steal as much. I think you're right. I think the Indians are kind of, don't want to do it as much because of the lack of offense. I think it's a good point.
And so he's facing Danny Jansen, who's he's 13 for 14 in stolen base success. So that's an all-day run against Jansen, as well as Detroit, who's 19 out of 23. So they're like 8th most in stolen bases given up. So I think it's a good opportunity to get your first attempt, Cesar. Get in there, get on the base, and blaze it up a little bit. And I just think for volume and for a possibility in homers and steals, I like Cesar this week.
Yeah, I always like Cesar Hernandez. I think he's always a solid player that people kind of overlook. And like you said, he gets consistent playing time. So he makes complete sense.
He's the kind of guy where you don't think so, but when I see him drop in 15 team leagues, I'm like, what is this guy crazy? And I'm instantly on it. I always find a spot for him. I think it was like in my TGFBI league 2 weeks ago, like him and Grossman were dropped, and I was like, I'm like, there's like two of my favorite leadoff, everyday players, and I don't understand that those drops. I'm
in a 16 team league, Rob, a home league, and someone dropped Grossman, and I was out of ads for the week. And
you can't
I
trade
was
for
gonna
an ad.
it's Sunday he was still there. I was going to add him Monday. My best friend added him Sunday like night right before like you could add again. It was horrible. All right.
You can't trade for ads. That would be interesting idea. I
Probably
know, like
could.
in my home league, we
No,
trade
you
for
could.
Fab. You could trade for
Yeah,
Fab,
you
but
could.
oh,
You
you
definitely
could.
could.
You
You
can?
could
Oh,
say
okay.
pick him up and trade him to me. I'll give you this player.
Oh, right. True.
So,
True. Yeah, gotcha.
I probably should have did that. Good point. All right, Rob, before we go, tell everyone where they can find you, what you got going on.
Yes, at Dead Pull Hitter on Twitter, at Pull Hitter Pod, the page for the podcast too, the Pull Hitter Podcast. Yeah, doing a Monday or Tuesday, depends when we record, recap of the NFBC main event BAB with Mr. Todd Whitestone, writer for spstreamer.com. He's got an excellent article every Mondays, right, Mike? Recapping the player movement trends. It's not only the ads, we talk about the drops, we talk about the standings, and I think it's very valuable. I kind of like it because I've talked to people who use the main event data, and they don't play in the main event. So, they kind of want to see what everyone with big bucks on the line are doing in the player movement. So I think it's pretty cool podcast me and Todd cover. And then, like Mike mentioned, I do the lineup podcast on Fridays for your Friday through Sunday lineup advice, and I try to sprinkle one other podcast in during the week with a guest and just talk about whatever. So that's it. That's what I got going on. I'm going on vacation soon, so I probably won't be podcasting for like 2 weeks. I'll probably take some time off. And
all right, take the break. Everyone needs it.
Yeah, I feel like
I got one
like,
in August. So.
Oh yeah, great. Yeah, I feel like it's just been nonstop since like 2019 winter. Because we didn't stop last year. We we went right through to March preparation, and then when it stopped and it was on pause, we just kept prepping. We kept watching everything. So it's been a struggle to find other things to do.
So I get that, man.
I was gonna So thanks for having me again, Mike. It was cool. Hope everyone enjoyed it and found some actionable info.
Yep, anytime, Rob. And for those who watched, thank you for watching. For those who are watching after the live stream, thanks for checking us out. Also, please remember to subscribe to us on YouTube, on Twitch, follow us on Twitter at spstreamer. We do a lot of cool things. We're going to continue to do these videos. I am now doing live streams every Saturday, and then we're doing Monday and Wednesday mornings. Those might turn tonight. I keep saying that. We'll see. It probably will depend from week to week. I'll try and do a night though, because I feel like more people can watch it compared to 7:30 in the morning Eastern time. So that's that. But again, thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you soon. Stay safe and have a great weekend.